Greetings and welcome. Welcome to Stop the Freakout webinar number 2. So I'm Christopher Avery. I'm the CEO and founder of the Responsibility Company. And this is an opportunity for us to do what we do. And that is do some real live mentoring. So who's on the call? We have people from all over the world who registered for this. We did one of these yesterday, and we again had people from every continent. And we had some amazing conversations and a lot of great feedback about how magical it was. We saw people's energy shift from extreme fear and anxiety to extreme freedom and power right here in front of us. And that's what we know is the power of the responsibility process when practiced, is we know that freedom is just an instant away from our ability to break through from our anxiety to this wonderful mental state of responsibility. And we think the world could use some of that right now. So last Thursday and Friday, my world started getting really, really crazy as emails started pouring in from everything I've ever had a subscription to, every website telling me how my safety is their #1 concern and how they're changing things in response. And so Thursday and Friday was a little eerie for me, unsettling, definitely high uncertainty, low clarity, even a little anxiety. What does this mean to me? What does this mean to my family? What does this mean to my business? And then over the weekend, I started asking myself, what do I want about this? And it occurred to me very rapidly, and that is that we have a tremendous opportunity to do our work. This is an unplanned for, unrequested, unwished for opportunity for us to do what we're here to do, which is to spread the word about the responsibility process in our minds and how it operates to freak us out or to empower us based on our response to situations. So as you have read from us already, there's 2 pandemics going on right now. One is a microorganism, and the other is fear, uncertainty, doubt, anxiety, panic, mania, etc. And we don't know much about infectious diseases here at the Responsibility Company. We know an awful lot about how to lead ourselves and others through anxiety and fear and uncertainty and get to a place of freedom, choice, and power. So like you, perhaps, it's time for us to pivot in terms of what is the future going to look like in terms of our business. I did a quick financial review on Thursday with my finance leader at the Responsibility Company. And we made one significant assumption, and that is that the phone is not going to ring for the rest of the year with anybody wanting me to get on an airplane and come to them and deliver a live workshop or presentation or keynote. So that wiped a significant stream of revenue off of us. And that means that we get to find something new to do to replace that if we want to continue our team and continue our service and continue as a company. I don't think we're unlike any other organization or individual entity anywhere on the planet right now in terms of the uncertainty of our economic world going forward. I don't have much fear about that because I think that there will be plenty of need and plenty of demand. We just need to learn what form it's going to come in and adjust to suit that. So raise your hand if you'd like to come on. I was expecting a producer to be here, which I don't see. And so I'll be managing this myself. And I'd love to speak with you and find out what's on your mind. So set an intention for this time. One of the 3 keys to responsibility is intention. And we can set even segment intentions. We can set an intention for a segment of our day. For instance, when I get in my car, I have a little mental routine that runs that says that I have a intention for driving joyfully and arriving safely wherever I'm going. So my intention for this call is to serve and to have a great time and to witness some breakthroughs. Um, so let me see. Also check in with yourself. All right. Hello. Am I present? Is my mind in the past feeling bad or guilty or wishing I could reshape the past? Or is my mind in the future worrying about something or daydreaming? Or am I present? So get present, get here, get now. If you're recently joining us, put in if you're on Zoom, check in the chat and say where you are today in the world. If you're in Facebook, do so with a comment. So I see some chats to that effect going on. So I am not seeing any raised hands yet. Let me check chats. Helena, lockdown in the south of Spain. Do you have toilet paper? Yes, I have toilet paper, thank you. Right. Great, welcome all of you. Okay, who has a question about how to take responsibility for now, for ourselves, for this crisis, for coronavirus, for our team?
Hey, Christopher, it's Mike. I have something. Yeah, I'll kick this off. When it comes, like, because you just mentioned the toilet paper, it's really easy to look at, and you can't see me, but I'm doing the air quotes, those people who are running out and panic buying toilet paper and hand sanitizer and, you know, blah, 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 all this type of stuff. And there we go.
I just tried promoting you to panelist, Mike, and I think I lost you. There you are.
I'm back.
Now I can see you.
Yeah, so it's really easy to point to those people who are going out and panic buying and so on and so forth. And I'm just curious, what's your perspective on that?
What's my perspective on panic or panic
buying and people hoarding and, you know, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. My perspective is it's human. It's normal.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I think what you may be doing here, asking me about this, is that it's really easy for us to go to judgment or evaluation and say that that's wrong or that's horrible or they're stupid or whatever. And a lesson of responsibility, of course, is that doing so actually traps us more in our lower mind, what some people call a lizard mind, or what you and I would call below the line. And it actually keeps us from being free, powerful, and at choice. So for me, you know, if that's truly going on out there, then I'm going to face it and ask myself what's true or real about it. And what's true or real about it is that humans do things like that. Humans panic. Right? We have this flee, flight, or what is it called? Freeze.
Fight or flight. Freeze, fight, or flight.
I learned 2 parts growing up. Now there's 3 parts, right? Freeze, fight, or flight. And there was a biological reason for that evolutionarily until such time as we live in advanced societies like we do now. But these advanced societies are way ahead of where the evolution of our brains are. Mm-hmm. So we still have that freeze, fight, or flight response. And that leads us to do some way below the line things. So as a practitioner of responsibility, I'm not going to get, as we say, bent around the axle about that. I'm going to say, yes, humans do these things. and I'm going to go on about my business. So, we can equate that to leadership. And sometimes leadership is the ability to keep yourself centered when all around you are losing their head or involved in the drama. So what I'm talking about here is the ability to confront reality, see it for what it is, and decide to move forward with your life, your purpose, your intention, your action, rather than get distracted into spending minutes or days or hours complaining about people hoarding toilet paper. Is simply a more powerful stance. Is that where you were going with this or wondering about?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
So you have a lot of brilliance about this yourself. What would you add?
Yeah, the part I would add to it is when I observe those people who, they're in that mode of whatever you want to call it, is to simply love them as who they are, and they're coming at it from where they are. And the best thing I can do is just show up and be the most powerful version of me in that time and space.
Yeah, very cool. Thank you. I just checked the chat and saw that you told Mike Lieber he was up next. So I'm just trying to promote him to panelist. And Mike Lieber, invite you to come on.
Christopher, I'll keep an eye on the comments and such.
Thanks, Mike.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you turn your video
on? I could, but that would not be responsible because I'm in the car currently.
Yeah, that would not be responsible. Thank you.
Yeah, and I want to take this responsibility forward, but I couldn't leave this conversation out after having heard yesterday's, and it's really an amazing thing. And I just want to share a little bit. I was traveling a lot over the past 2 weeks and taking everything very easy and relaxed. Last week in New York, it started to change a little bit because it felt like sitting in the fire. Because suddenly we were in a conference, people from one day to the other became fearful and left the conference on day number one, and we shrinked. And suddenly I faced myself, and I'm back in Europe, and I traveled a lot of airports. And funny enough, last week I was a little bit over it, and so suddenly just coming from a shop now, it totally feels unreal. And it's comfortable to feel uncomfortable right now. It's sort of, I have no idea, where things are going. There's a lot of fear, actually. There's anxiety. So these words are obviously totally up to it. But what is so interesting, I remember, Christopher, when we had our first Train the Trainer course with you, and you gave us this example of, if you really want to confront and go to a hospital where people are really, really suffering, and sit down for, I don't know, an hour or half an hour or a day, and just be there, right? And be maybe available for a conversation, and you will just recognize what is happening to you, what is happening to others. So I had to remember this, and dramatically enough, I suddenly feel in being, in this position, all of us, and basically, sitting in the fires, suddenly, experiencing it. And that's just it. I wanted to share a little bit. And I recognized by checking in multiple times a day, to say, where am I? What do I want? I shifted from more angst towards more confidence over the past hours or so, into even becoming creative again, to say, okay, whatever it is, let's do something because we can.
Wow, nice, Mike. Stay there. I want to comment a little bit for people listening, to unpack a little bit of what you said on a few things. So first of all, I hope that you're all familiar with the responsibility process. That's what we're talking about. So below the line is a bunch of mental states where every time we get upset, we get anxious, we get afraid, we get uncertain, our mind goes down here into these states of blame, justify, shame, obligation, quit. And we're really ineffective there. We're smart and we're motivated, but we're terribly ineffective there. We're seeing the world through scarcity lenses, and we're not really solving any real problems or getting much done for all of our effort. The mental state of responsibility is actually a mental state of freedom, power, and choice. You heard Mike just mention confidence when he checked in with himself and said, what's your intention, and where are you, and what do you want about this situation? He transferred from this anxiousness to confidence. So that's actually a move from below the line to above the line. Mike also talked about just noticing what's going on around him, and it seems unreal, it seems surreal. Well, it seems unreal or surreal because we have a little image of reality that we build, and we want to hold on to that. And when things change, then that gets attacked. So if you want to be more powerful, then one of the keys is confront. The three keys to practicing responsibility are intention, awareness, and confront. And confront doesn't mean for two people to get aggressive towards each other. Confront means the ability to face. So if this is my mirror, if you're looking at the screen, my hands are my mirror. Confront means the ability to face, right? It means the ability to face reality and the ability to face my own fears. So what I do to get powerful quickly in times of change is I just pay attention to, okay, what's happening here? What's changing, right? And that's what I said, Thursday and Friday, as all these emails started coming in, I felt a little wobbly and a little uncertain. And so I just upped my confront. I just upped my asking myself, okay, what's true? What's happening? And, you and I, I'll give you a quick anecdote. You and I are even very well trained to try and deny what's happening. So a kind of a sick example of that is that if you were standing on a street corner and you heard a screech of tires and a crunch of metal and glass, and so there was an accident in the making right there, our very first response is, oh no! Right? And what I teach is if you're a first responder or somebody else, your first response is, oh, is, right? Is as in this is happening. So as long as we say, oh no, that's a panic and that's a freeze and we're not powerful. And as quick as we can say, oh, look what is happening, then we can respond. So I just wanted to say that. Mike, what else did you mention that we should kind of put a explanation?
Yeah, maybe putting us a little bit forward, and it's coming to my conclusion. I think we have the choice, if we look at the typical, water glass half full, half empty, to choose which one we look at, which part we look at. And obviously, given all these anxiety, given all these news, we've got news ongoing endlessly about the same problems. We are torn towards the empty part, and that sucks us in. And I decided to stop looking at it. At least from a certain angle, I want to look at the full half and make it even a little bit fuller. I want to look at a newspaper, which maybe we create ourselves, where we don't look at bad news, but look at great things happening, and basically use all the positive energy we currently experience all around us. If I just, for example, look on social media and recognize friends and colleagues and contacts who are just starting now to create, help each other, come up with ideas, getting used to what they were not used to, like using any sort of tools and techniques. And this is something I was just having a conversation this evening with some peers. We're gonna start now to create something. And this is about to write our own newspaper for people who are interested in the full half class, right? So this is something about what I'm gonna do. And again, this is not putting my anxiety away. It's still under my chest, so I can feel it while I'm speaking now. This is It is still there, and it won't go away. It's part of me. It's if I can say, it's my friend at the moment, and that's what I also figured out. I need to become friend with my own anxiety, because otherwise it will, sooner or later, tomorrow, the other day, or how long ever things last, catch me again, and I need to face it. So that is currently my state of mind. And I want to thank you, Christopher, for this program, actually, which, like many other programs we've been talking about in the past weeks, months, even years, are now suddenly on the spot.
Nice. Thank you, Mike. So let me make two comments about that. One about anxiety. So what the responsibility process teaches me is that every time something goes wrong, which means every time something happens so that we have something other than what we want. So if I'm going to the kitchen to get a cup of coffee and I trip over a crack and I fall, right, and I'm embarrassed, I want a cup of coffee. That's a force vector in motion, and I have a fall instead. So if someone doesn't show up at our team meeting for an important decision, whatever, things go wrong 1,000 times a day. Every time things go wrong, the responsibility process kicks in and we enter it here. So someone was telling me today that they're expecting a huge blame storming to start in the world, and especially in the United States, as the cases of coronavirus goes up, and blaming businesses that didn't shut down fast enough and blah, blah, blah. And once again, because I understand this so well, they said to me, what do you think about that? And I said, well, yeah, people blame. It's the first thing they do when things go wrong. So I fully expect to see lots of that. It's not bad or wrong. It's just human, and it's how we respond. So what Mike said about welcome the anxiety and feel it, that may sound a little weird to you, but the thing is, I've come to use it as a signal. So you see, what the responsibility process tends to make us all do is we try and deny or avoid the anxiety by spewing it out as complaints or blames or justifies or beating ourselves up or whatever. For me now, it's a signal for me to examine what's going on and how do I want to respond. So Stephen Covey, quoting a couple of other philosophers like Rollo May and Viktor Frankl, said, in between stimulus and response is a space. And in that space is choice. And in that choice is freedom and power. And what happens when you and I develop is we actually put things on autopilot, and we label things as good, bad, right, wrong. And we reduce that space from stimulus to react with no space at all. And we just have this autopilot reaction to everything. And practicing the responsibility process actually starts to open this up. And when you make anxiety your friend and know that every time you don't get what you want, you're going to feel anxious. And then you can use that to do what you heard Mike say, which is ask the question, oh, what do I want about this? Right? So we're taught to ask, what should I do? And the sad thing about that is that the what should I do question actually maps to shame and obligation. And so I found that the best question that gets me from below the line to above the line, or from anxiety to creativity or generativity or confidence, is the question of, oh, look at this mess. Look at this pandemic. What do I want about this situation right now? So I'm going to say one more thing, and then I want to talk to somebody. So let me know who's coming on next. Raise your hand or say in chat that you want to come in and ask a question or work on something. So the other thing I wanted to say is about the news. I had the good fortune of being able to study a lot, not directly with, but with people who work directly with the brilliant Buckminster Fuller, who was an amazing comprehensivist and design scientist. And he taught me that the news is not in the papers or on TV. He said, you are the news. He taught me that what's on TV and in the papers is the drama business. and their job is to stir up anxiety. And so I think it's really cool that we can now get information about current events from lots and lots of different sources, and we can check things for ourselves. But what I would encourage you to do is to create your own news, as Mike was mentioning. So Tovo says you can't see the bottom half at all. So there's the responsibility process model, and I think some of you have put in the chat how to download a copy of the poster. So lay blame, justify, shame, quit, obligation, responsibility. Okay. Who would like to say hello? Raise your hand, and I'll promote you to panelist. Great, thank you, Tovo. Being promoted to panelist right now. You should show up here if you have video, that'd be awesome.
All right. Hello, everyone.
Hello.
I rejoined the meeting as I was promoted to panelist.
Cool. Welcome.
Yeah. So I did have my part of anxiety when it comes to this Corona business. I had a rather intense anxiety during, what was it, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Then I started doing something about it on Monday, but I was very interestingly stuck in my head. So it seemed like 2 or 3 obligations were fighting over it, fighting with each other. And I was like caught in the middle because they were pulling in different directions. So it wasn't possible for me to even obey the obligation because they were, they were contradicting with each other.
Right. So just for everybody listening, Tovo has been around this material for a long time, so he's using very technical language around the responsibility process. So Tovo, I might ask you to talk plain language.
I will try. So
so feeling trapped as opposed to many obligations, right?
Yes. Yeah, I was feeling trapped, and stuff was all right until like Friday. I had arrived here in Mali, Africa, on Wednesday, and taken a self-isolation day on Thursday, just in case. And noticing that there's like no orders whatsoever, then I went to work. But then I got this tiny little whiff of a throat-ache. And that put my mind then going round and round about, should I be here? Should I be at the office? Should I be home? And lots of stories. My mind just started generating stories and anxiety. Nothing very useful.
Okay, so where are you now?
Well, on Monday morning, I heard that it's possible to get tested. So I decided, hell yes, I'll go talk to UN Medical and let's see what they think of this. I mean, I've had enough of this guess game in my head. Should I do this? Should I do that? Am I being bad if I do this? Am I being bad if I do that? I wanted all of that conversation out of my head. So I went to medical. They did a short interview for me and then basically told me to go home till next Wednesday.
Cool. Good for you. So
I've been in this room ever since.
Yeah, so I don't know if Tovo said what's going on in his life in the chat, but Tovo's from Finland and is doing a stint for the Finnish military in Africa. And so I think you were talking about you were home for a little bit and then flew back to Africa.
Yeah. Yeah, and it felt actually really anxiety producing for me, not knowing if there is an actual chance that I might be endangering other people.
I understand.
On the other hand, I had a huge rule in my head that thou shalt not avoid work. So.
Right. Yeah. Cool. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Well, at the moment, I started thinking, where am I with this now? And I kind of thought that I'm probably above the line in responsibility because I don't feel bad, but I feel pretty easy. But then I thought, or am I maybe still like avoiding the whole issue, not thinking about it, not thinking, it doesn't apply to me, or I don't need to do anything about it. So maybe I could be in quit. I'm not sure.
Or you could let it go.
Yeah. Which is always a good alternative.
Absolutely. Okay.
Yeah, thank you
Cool.
for reminding me.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
So good to see you, my friend. Awesome.
Good to be here.
All right, thank you. We're going to go see who else has a question or something you want to work on. So let me speak to something you want to work on. So what does responsibility mentoring look like? We call it mentoring because mentoring usually happens with someone who's worked with the responsibility process in their own head for a long time, and just has more experience doing so, applying the keys of intention, awareness, and confront. So what inviting assistance looks like is realizing that you've got a stuck spot somewhere. What does a stuck spot look like? Well, sometimes you know it, or sometimes you don't know it, but what you know is that you are chewing on something in your mind over and over and over and over, and it's really tiring to keep chewing on it, and you wish you were done chewing on it, but you're not, and you'd like to be done. So what happens is every time we have one of these, Tovo did the same thing I did earlier. This is a force field diagram between what we want and what we have, and when those come together, we're stuck. We even say to each other, I'm stuck, right? And we've got what in German would be stasis, so force field theory was developed by a German. And so this is called stasis, but there's energy coming together, which means it's throwing off heat or something, and that heat in humans is angst, anxiety. So Susan, I saw your hand up and I made you a panelist. So I think you should be here now. You're muted.
Yes, I've been without connectivity until just now, so
welcome.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, Susan's our producer director. That I've been doing both jobs here, so I'm glad you're here, Susan, for whatever got in the way. So we are inviting folks to ask a question or come get some mentoring. So who has something that you'd like? And if you're on Facebook, you can come over to Zoom. If you'd like to speak directly with me, I welcome the conversation. And I think the Zoom link is available to you somewhere on where you're watching on Facebook. Oh, I see a hand up and I'm slow to find it. Stuart, all right. Promoting you to panelist, Stuart. We're finding out that this is taking a bit for the promotion to take place. And I'd recommend to others, get your hands up and Susan can get you staged. Stuart, good to see you.
Hello, Christopher. How are you?
I'm free, powerful, and at choice, my friend. How are you?
That was good. I am at home, as you can see.
I can see.
Since you've been here.
In Ashtabula.
Yes.
Cool.
Just wanting to chat a little bit about all the things that are happening around here, and our governor of the state of Ohio, Michael DeWine, has been very forceful in trying to achieve some degree of management of or flattening the curve. And so he has shut down a lot of things. And a lot of the people that I work with are out of business, especially in the service and hospitality industries. They're having a lot of angst, a lot of anxiety over their future. What are the tools that we can use to help them move through this process and achieve responsibility?
Yeah, it's a really good question, Stuart. Me too, right? So I have a handful of teammates, and my revenue projections as of last Thursday, when we made the assumption that all in-person workshops and speeches and other things for the rest of the year would not happen. So essentially what we looked at is that the responsibility company either innovates dramatically, reduces expenses, and you know what that means in terms of other people getting paychecks, or we're dead in a few months. I don't think that there's anybody in the world, any business in the world, any association in the world that's not in the same position. And I think that's actually the good news. The good news isn't that, oh boy, other people are suffering like me. I don't mean that that's the good news. What I mean is the good news is that there's still a ton load of money in this world that wants to move. Right? And yeah, it's stuck right now, and it's going to be hoarded a little bit right now because of the uncertainty, and the markets are going crazy and all of that stuff. But as soon as we have a little bit of certainty again, and we will have certainty again soon, then there's going to be tremendous new opportunity. Right? So for me, that just meant, oh, I get to do what I always get to do as an entrepreneur. I get to pivot and innovate.
Right. You get to start making the plans that will help you take advantage of that opportunity when it arrives.
Right. So for me, it's getting my mind out of scarcity and to abundance.
Yes.
Right. So below the line is scarcity thinking. You know, all of this is thinking that, you know, it's a jungle out there and we're all alone, and it's me against the world, and woe is me, and all of that kind of stuff. And
or blaming the government, blaming the Chinese, or blaming anything else that might be out there. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah. You know, for instance, I just saw on nextdoor.com, I just saw one of my neighbors here in Austin post a very self-righteous appeal that our governor of the state should make the mortgage companies and banks and creditors stop demanding payment. You know, I don't have a point of view about whether that's right or wrong. But my point of view is that my mortgage company does not want to call my mortgage.
No, they're not in the real estate business. They're
No,
in the money business.
That's right. And my electric company does not want to sue me because I'm missing my payments in a time like this. So there's going to be a second thing besides becoming innovative and figuring out your own genius and who needs it and how you can offer that genius, whether you're accustomed to being an employee or whether you're a business person. It's, you know, getting out there and figuring out what's wanted and needed and how to provide it. So in our case, that's what we're doing right now. Is this crisis is the largest opportunity that the responsibility company has ever had to do our service, to do our work, which is to help people understand how responsibility works in the mind, so that they can experience greater freedom, choice, and power. So none of us are getting paid to do this right now, but we know that it's our work to do, and we know that it will probably lead to new work. So if I were an individual, you know, if I was a welder or somebody who, you know, really depended on finding a job, I'd be doing the same thing. I'd be figuring out how can I use whatever skills I have to be of service and to deliver what's wanted and needed, so that someone can see and then ask, hey, could you do that? Because if you could do that, I would pay you this. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, Stuart, I think this is a time of tremendous cooperation and coming together and supporting each other.
You're right, it is.
Right. So, you know, whether you like the biblical story of the fishes and the loaves or whatever, what's amazing is the abundant resources that we all have together. And when we start leaning on each other and depending on each other, then there is no lack and there is no scarcity. And so I think that's a second thing. The third thing for employers and managers, you know, people that have employees that depend on them. You know, for me, my thinking over the weekend around that was, it starts with who am I? How do I lead myself? What do I stand for as a business owner and employer? Is my intention to align with my team, or is my intention to get my team to do things to make me wealthier? And I decided, you know, like always, we're in this together, and I'm just going to tell my team the truth, and I'm going to, you know, lay out the facts in front of my team and the books and the budgets, and say, let's work together to see how we can turn this into what we want it to be. So that's my approach.
Yeah, same approach we took in the post 9/11 recession, in the 2008 Great Recession, and today in our business, is to sit down with all of our people and say, how do we work our way through this? How do we manage through it? What are the needs? How can we address them? And we're all in this together. Nobody goes home unless they need to self-isolate. But we're going to find our way through it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, you know, I think the last thing I'd leave you with this, Stuart, is the practice of responsibility is not about having some wizard like me know the right answers. The practice is figuring out how to ask ourselves the questions that get us from below the line thinking to above the line thinking. And above the line, we tap into our own brilliance, our own genius, our own values, our own inspiration, and we come up with novel answers that no one else can give us, which is why people ask me, how do I take responsibility for X? You know, do you have any tips or advice? And I say, no, I have no tips or advice, except, you know, let me mentor you, let me help you shift your thinking from below the line to above the line, and there you'll find your own answers.
And that's the type of tool that I was talking about, yes.
Yeah. Thank you so much, my friend.
Thank you, good to see you.
Kisses and hugs to Kim and all them.
Thank you.
Yes,
Take
sir.
care of yourself.
You too.
Jim has his hand up and has some interesting insights to share.
Super. Is it up to me to make him panelist now?
I'm afraid so. I can't find that I can do it at the moment.
Okay, let me see if I can find you and make you super wizard. So Jim, you should be coming along. Susan, I just made you a co-host. So that should do it. I think I hear you. A little louder, more volume. Jim's not quite here yet.
Oh, can you hear me now?
I can barely hear you. I don't think it's loud enough for people to hear you.
All right. I'll have to go to a set of headphones. I'll come back and let me get myself reset up with that, and then we'll get it.
I'm sorry, I'm unable to hear. Maybe you can try reconnecting or something.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Someone else. Let me go to the chat. Jim, hello?
Can you hear me now?
A little better. Can you get closer to your microphone?
Yeah, I'm as close as I can get without becoming a full head.
All right.
Well, I was just sharing. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, let me just tell you, sometimes the Zoom app, if you have it set to automatically adjust your microphone, sometimes it adjusts it down. So
Yeah, I'm on my camera's microphone right now.
Cool. Let's go ahead.
Well, I was just sharing with her that Fred Kaufman, who's a friend of mine, he had a funny phrase, was that whenever I have a problem, I'm around. And so in this situation, the COVID-19 is not a problem that I participated in, because usually I've been part of the problem and there's a way for me to see my role in that. So it's caused me to think a little differently this time. And so I'm thinking more in the future and from a strategic perspective than I might have in the past. So that's where I'm at in the situation that's currently affecting us all across the planet.
Interesting.
And also I think that the other thing that's coming is that this is going to change the world as we know it. Economically, socially, medically, technology, all of those things. And I come from the hospitality background, and it's going to take a while for us to come out of this situation. And I don't know, it'll be a different kind of hole. So I'm thinking, how do you prepare yourself for that? You know, what tools do you have in your kit that you could start using to help you prepare for what's going to be a totally different world?
Thank you. Yeah, let me say a couple of things. And I also want to say at this point that I'd love for everyone watching or listening to write into comments or chat, just write in 1 or 2 wins from today or even from this hour, right? So a wins practice is a huge practice for those of us that practice responsibility. A win is an intention met. And, you know, our society focuses on losing, complaining, feeling like we're being taken advantage of, or all the world's against us. And the truth is that we are creating our own reality all the time. We just aren't always owning it. So that's part of the definition of responsibility, is owning that we're creating our own reality. And so claiming wins is a way to keep us above the line. So I'd love for you to write some wins in. I'd also love your feedback on what we're doing here. If this is valuable for you, please say how it's valuable for you. If you have ideas for how we can improve going forward the next week or 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of doing this, love to have those ideas. So thank you, Jim, for waiting for me to ask for those things from everybody participating. So we talk about practicing responsibility or taking responsibility on 2 levels. And one level is the practical level. And I think the practical level is what you're speaking about here, which is, I don't think I caused this problem, but since it's a problem for me, I get to take ownership of my response, right? And then the extreme level is what you said is usual. With the extreme level of practicing responsibility is, I created, chose, or attracted this to me. And so both I get to own it and I get to figure out how I respond, but I also get to look at the larger system of my life if I want to stop attracting this problem to me. So I think what you're saying is, Corona, I didn't create, choose, or attracted it, but if it's a problem for me, I get to take 100% ownership of my life. Secondly, what are the new tools? I learned a long time ago a set of conditions formulas for living my life. And one of those formulas is a formula of being new to something. And the idea of being new is thinking about, you know, what if you just moved to a new town and you didn't have assets and you didn't have a lot of money for a long hotel stay and restaurants and everything else. What it essentially says is to come into town slowly. What that means is don't act like an expert and that you know everything and tell everybody what to do, because it's a new place, it's a new situation. And you have to learn the lay of the land. But what you do is you start making contacts. So you put in relationships. You get out and meet people. And you find out what's wanted and needed. And then you figure out if you have the skills and the abilities to supply what's wanted and needed. And then you do that. And sooner or later, commerce happens as a result of that. So this isn't a lot different than what Stuart and I were talking about in terms of how do we respond now. So so Jim disappeared from my screen, but I'm going to go on. So I could respond here by saying, oh, I don't deserve this, after all these years as an author and a speaker and an expert, I deserve better than having to start all over, blah, blah, blah. I could spend a lot of time below the line. Or I could decide, hey, it's a new town I'm in, and I get to start networking with people and putting in lines of communication and talking about what's wanted and needed, and discover what is my genius and my inspiration that I'm perfectly suited to provide and solve for other people. And then I start offering that to them. That may sound very conceptual, but for me, that's an approach that I've used my whole life. Jim, what about you?
I wouldn't say I've used it all my life, but it's certainly my time overseas and different studies that I've taken. I've learned to live in a state of curiosity, and that plays well for me, and it helps me. Today I'm going to a nonprofit board meeting, and it's about university education here in the hill country of Texas. And our high schools are closed down. It's all online courses right now. And so I'm thinking about, well, how do we deal with that? And what opportunities does it open up for us and prepare for the future? So my mind is racing right now on the education front, getting ready for that board meeting this afternoon. But thinking responsibly is certainly a excellent tool to handle these uncertain times.
Yeah, and that means, what do we want about this that's going to free us? Yeah. So thank you very much, and thank you for your service as a board member there in your school system. All right, cool. Jim, I think we're going to talk to one more person, and I look forward to a chance to talk again, Jim. Thank you. Do I see Gabriel coming on, or Susan? Do we have somebody else queued up?
Yes, Gabriel.
Yeah, that's me. I can just
I see you, Gabriel.
How are you?
I'm you know how I am. I'm free.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a choice, right?
Yeah, it's a choice. It's a choice. And so Susan suggested I maybe have something to say, and I can only share an experience that I've had last week in the face of the situation, this crisis. And about maybe a week and a half ago or so, I started obviously there wasn't any lockdowns at my clients, so I kept going back and forth, taking the train. And then I started to catch myself, washing my hands on a more regular basis, and then becoming a bit obsessive about washing hands, cleaning this, cleaning that, and to actually realize I was playing the fear game like everybody else. And so it wasn't really necessarily washing the hands from a state of responsibility, but more so from a state of fear. And I had a somewhat of a cold that I've been carrying a week prior, and still have a bit of a cold today. And of course, that put me in a situation of stress. And so it's just a state of mind, and this is where, catching yourself. And luckily enough, I have my wife who kept me on the spot here by asking me, "See, if you realize that you've been a bit obsessive about washing your hands?" I said, "Yeah, it's true. I've become obsessive, and I'm doing it out of fear rather than taking full responsibility, making sure what I'm doing." And so that I wanted to share that about that, and that just switching that removed a lot of that stress. There's another actually interesting situation that occurred, and I think it's to Jim's point. What do you do in situations like that? How do you prepare for the what's ahead? And what kind of business model do I need to look into? What is business going to become like? And my client's going to be looking for me in the future, and so on and so forth. So there was a situation that I encountered last week where I was asked to support a team of a group of strategists within an organization, and they approached me saying, they needed help, and And I had a lot of resistance towards that help. And the reason I had a lot of resistance is because I felt compelled. I felt like I was actually plugging in a hole, and I don't like being, called upon to plug holes. And so I was resisting this opportunity, and realizing that this is not for me. And I didn't really feel like I was compelled to actually help this company. And I had to basically talk about it quite often to try and understand from what level, what state of mind I was actually operating for. I felt like I was a state of obligation towards this company because I've always been called upon to plug holes.
So for you, it's helpful for you to have a reflector.
Yeah.
So in your case, your wife serves as a reflector.
Yes, it's always good to it's always good to talk about it.
You feel the uncertainty or the angst, but you're helped if you have that reflector to process it.
Absolutely. And it's just sometimes all it takes is somebody just listens. And what happened was I did a 180 degree on that one. I said, this situation obviously is causing a lot of unknowns, a lot of uncertainty, and we're probably all in the same situation. My client, just as many other clients, are in the same situation. And the funny thing that happened is just having done that switch allowed me to be more at peace with actually offering my services to that company. But here's what happened. I had 2 big opportunities lined up, and they were all canceled or at least postponed. And the one that stood and that still requires my help is the one I resisted.
Interesting.
So this is a, just going from a state of obligation or below the line to state of responsibility, and understanding, what are the triggers and catching yourself soon enough. And then, doing that switch allowed me to actually be more from a space of a humbleness, and also to realize that in a situation like that, it's really about, unconditional service and try to collaborate. And I think this is where it's heading in the future. Yeah. So I wanted to share that.
Thank you. Yeah. I think so too. So the point I want to reinforce is it's going to be a new game for everybody.
Yeah.
And there's no shortage of money and capital and resources and credit on this planet.
Yeah.
So the amount of wealth on this planet that needs to circulate, that must circulate, is immense. And everybody gets to look at a new world and say, how do I fit? But I don't know a model that says wait for somebody else to determine where I fit and put an ad in the newspaper and go answer it. I don't know that model. The model that I know is to get out there and learn what's wanted and needed from the type of people that I want to be with and hang out with, and figure out how to provide that. And like I said, whether I'm used to being an employee or a business person or a business owner or whatever. So I think there's tremendous opportunity ahead out of this. We just get to go through the trough of the J curve of the anxiety and the uncertainty beforehand. Gabriel, thanks for being my last conversation partner today. We're going to go ahead and bring this to a close. Susan, unless you have a different plan, I'm going to ask everyone who's still on to do a couple of things. Please provide us feedback. What was the value specifically for you in this today? How would you recommend that we improve it going forward? We're planning to do it again Friday at 10 a.m. Central. That would be the same time that it was yesterday when we did this. So we have a post at responsibility.com. You can send your friends there. It'll be updated very soon to show the Friday one. Please follow and like us. We are at Response Pro, RESPONSPRO, Response Pro, at Response Pro on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter. You know how to find me, Christopher Avery, on LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Like us, follow us. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Please go out there and lead yourself and others through this crisis by demonstrating responsibility.